Hello, today we are going to see a very interesting attribute which is always run. Till now we have seen that many method depends on other methods or depend on groups, and what happens when any of those methods on which a particular test depends on fail. That method will not get executed, right? So now let's see, we have a scenario where we open the browser, do some test, and then later we have to close the browser and go to the next test. So now we run our test, and in between one of the tests fails. So now what happens? The browser remains open. If we have not put any other attributes in our test attached to annotations, there will be multiple browser sessions open which will eventually fail the entire test suite. In order to avoid that, we use an attribute called always run. If set to true, this test method, our test method, will always run even if it depends on a method that failed. Say for a particular scenario, we open a page, we do through automation and we do some test on that, and then later on we close that browser, we open a new browser session for the next test. So we have this test that has failed. Now what happens to the browser session? It remains open. So the method that closes that browser session should run by default even if it depends on earlier test, and even if it depends on earlier methods. I mean earlier methods and earlier groups. So how to achieve that? We always run using always run equal to true, and as stated here, if set to true, the test method will always be run even if it depends on a test or method that failed. So let's see how to do that in practical. I have this annotations.java in which I have added some further things. So let me expand this. If you see here, the checkout method has been changed to always run in any case. Even if the methods in main flow group, any of the method, if it fails, then our checkout method should always run. Compare this to close browser method in an actual test suite. So this is something similar to that. You will always run the checkout method even if any of the dependent methods in the dependent group main flow fails. Now I have not changed anything else apart from that. This line I have added over here. What this line states is, it is throwing a new arithmetic exception with the parameter exception encountered. So we are failing this test reservation 2 deliberately, this method, and this method depends on groups init and also depends on main flow. So before this init and main flow, init will execute and later on this method will execute, it will fail. It comprises it is a part of main flow group, and as a result all the dependent methods which are dependent on this test will fail, but the checkout method will get executed even if it depends on main flow. Since reservation 2 is a part of main flow group and checkout method depends on group's main flow, it should not run since this method has failed, but it runs because of this parameter always run equal to true. Let's run this test and check out the results. Okay, I right click here, I go to run as test. There we go, the method has failed as per expected. Which method has failed? Reservation 2 has failed. And what is the exception? Arithmetic exception. As you can see here, launch browser, login, reservation, checkout have passed. And let's have a look below. Multi-group dependent has been skipped. Why has it been skipped? It is because of that reason that it depends on certain groups, and it states here why it has failed. Depends on not successfully finished method in group main flow. So you get a detailed description of why a particular method has failed when you execute through TestNG. So always remember to use a particular framework, in our case TestNG, because it helps us to debug our tests. Okay, moving ahead, let's look below. This gives that 6 tests have been run. There is one failure and one skip. The skip one is the one that we just saw. Okay, and now coming to the main method which we had. Okay, so look here, this method checkout, it was dependent on main flow group, but since we have put always run equal to true, it executed and it has passed. So this is the use of always run. Compare it with closed browser in an actual framework. By the way, this since this session is on describing the various aspects of TestNG framework, I have not used the actual open browser, closed browser and all those things. That will unnecessarily take the time and the main concept will remain unexplained. So that's all for this session. If you have any queries or questions, you can just post on my post on the comments below, and I would request you to please subscribe and like the post. Thank you very much.